What's going on, YouTube? Today, we're going to be talking about business mistake and where you lose money. Now, if you didn't know, I used to run a eight-figure company, and I used to sit down and lose money in business all the time from these little traps or things you overlook. So I'm here to help you out with four things that you can say that you might be losing money on. And what do I recommend you to do in each situation? Now, before we get into this, I'm not a financial expert or a tax expert. It's just some guys who spend a lot of time running a business, looking at all the numbers, and have a good understanding of business. And I am a business consultant, but I'm not your business consultant. And I do help people with their businesses to figure out where their money is getting lost. Now, let's get into this video. The very first thing I see a lot of business do that lose their money is pricing and discounting. A lot of people do not do the numbers on how much they make on each product. And how do you figure this out? By relying on constant discounting to train your customer to wait for the deals, to instead of paying full price, you lose money. Instead of prioritize volume for the marketplace, you focus on communicating the true value of the product. And what does that all mean? So I give you an example. You have a Uber Eat restaurant and you're selling the product, but no one really buys your product at full price, and you're losing money. At the end of the day, your product has to be worth at the full price, or the discounted price is the full price. So at the end of the day, this is where I see business lose money. And the biggest example I can give you is, let's say you are selling a TV. The TV full price is $300. Now, it costs you $190 to make it. $200 to make it if you include your labor and cost of material and everything else like that. $200, and you discount it to make only to $250. Now, if you factor in defects and everything, the total cost of the monitor is $220, and you make $30 per TV. Does that really make a lot of sense for you to only make $30 with that big an investment? Some people say yes, some people say no. But you could have sold it for $300 if you have a good quality. So these discounts could actually kill your profit and sometimes even put you in a negative. For example, you buy 12 dozen eggs at 50 cents and you talk to some consultant and says, hey, why don't you sell it for 40 cents instead of the 75 cents per egg, just so you can get people to know your eggs, so you can get a backing by the community, or you get a consistent buyer base. And these are the things that will put you in a negative. So don't lose money just to do a marketing, a discount, or don't lose money whenever you start discounting your items. It's the big thing I gotta tell you. Now, number two that a lot of people fall for in small business is payroll. Here's the thing. Payroll eats away your money. So small business often fall into the trap that completely solely on salary with larger company. And here's the thing. You're not going to be able to compete with the larger companies. You're going to have to pay them less because you need to have a proper market. I couldn't pay sometimes the higher fees for some of these engineers. You know, some of these engineers ask for $100,000 and I couldn't afford them. So you don't get the cream of the crop sometimes because of this. Now, to fix this, you have to build a culture, flexibility, give them a little bit better benefit, keep their work-life balance better than a bigger corporation if you want to pay them less. So at the end of the day, you can attract At the end of the day, you can attract really good employees by having a good work life, a good company overall. You can't pay them as much as bigger companies. And if you try to compete, you're going to lose out. I've seen this happen over and over again. Someone says, oh, well, this Microsoft is willing to pay me $220,000 a year. It's like, dang, I'm sorry. I guess I'm going to lose you, is what I would say. But they're making $120,000 at your company, and they're only producing enough to barely make their payments or barely make enough off of their products and their assistants to make that money for them after you release your product. So here's the thing. You have to be in the green in this portion. If you're in a red because you're paying employees too much, you're just going to run your business into the ground at the end of the day. That's just how you have to look at payroll. Is one of the biggest things that gets small businesses and makes them run into the ground. So make sure you don't try to compete with these bigger companies with the pay. Just try to pay what you can afford that's reasonable and give them a better work-life balance and better culture at the company. That's the big portion of it if you want to compete. Number 3 that gets small business is overhead. And it's often called death by 1,000 cuts. And this is what I mean. You have unnecessary expenses like a fancy office space, unmonitored vendor contracts, and redundant software subscription. And at the end of the day, you have to keep it at the bare minimum to keep a fully operational team. Maybe not rent out that $10,000 a month space, but you can make a $5,000 a month space work for the exact same profit margin. Sometimes it's better being in the fancier areas, but other time it isn't. So you have to monitor what you need for your business. So I'll give an example for myself. If I go buy a warehouse and I go to downtown, to the upscale area, well, the cost is like $400 a square foot. Or I go to a little bit outskirts and it costs me $150 a month or $150 square foot. That difference makes a big difference on overhead. So at the end of the day, you have to monitor your overhead before it gets out of control. And a lot of times the overhead sticks with you for a long time. So at the end of the day, you might be able to afford it now, but when the markets start going down, that overhead is still there. Now, there's other issues with it. Let's say you overestimate your growth and you got a bigger overhead because you think you can grow 1,000% and you got a bigger warehouse, bigger office. But in reality, you didn't grow that much. Well, your overhead is still there. So at the end of the day, what kills business is overhead, and that kills you little at a time. And number 4 is the last thing I see a lot of people do wrong is ineffective marketing. And I've seen this where they pay $1,000 on Google. Well, okay, you can pay $1,000 on Google, but who are you targeting? When you run a simple marketing campaign, you need to know who you're trying to get to, your market. Who are you advertising to? You have to be very specific. You can't do broad marketing, or you're going to end up losing money and not get a return. I always tell you, you need to do a data analysis on how much money you are getting off each time you do marketing. And that is a good deal to do. Now, if you don't do that, and you just believe everyone out there on how much money you're going to be making, you're going to end up being in a bad situation. So the overview or everything I got to tell you is these are the 4 pitfalls. Pricing and discounting, payroll, overhead, and inefficient marketing. Those will kill your business over time. Like and subscribe to my video. That's all I got for you.